All right. Hi, JC. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. So, you're a jazz musician in New York City, yeah? Amongst other things.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of consider myself more of a band leader than an actual legitimate jazz musician. Um, so my instrument is the band, basically.
So, you're more like Guy Lombardo?
I wouldn't say that. No, maybe more like Cab Calloway, or I don't know.
Cab Calloway, all right. Is that work the same way? I mean, I don't see many bands with a band leader anymore. That's kind of like old orchestra style, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not out front like
Waving a
conducting.
baton? No.
I mean, I am at the piano, and I do play piano. I'm like okay at it, but compared to the musicians in the band who are virtuosos, I don't really want to put myself in that same category. But I mean, I have talents that lie somewhere else, which which involve curating the band and the musicians and the sound and writing the music and choosing arrangers and vocalists and putting it all together. I'm an alchemist more than anything.
Okay. Almost like more like a producer, yeah?
In some ways, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still there at the piano, like keeping the tempo and uh, sort of, and then conducting with jazz with this kind of band with numerous horn players and other soloists. You kind of and often the solos are not written, and so it's just pointing to somebody to take a solo, or and then yelling at the horns to do backgrounds, riffs behind the soloist, and
Okay.
it's very spontaneous. It's very scripted, but also spontaneous.
So, right, the actual solo is sort of up to the performer, but their time to solo is scripted in, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Not always, it's no, it's sometimes it's written in who is to take the solo. Sometimes I'll point to somebody ahead of time or announce to the band ahead of the commencing the song like who's going to take the solo. Um, Sometimes people don't hear what I said, or sometimes I forget that part and we just launch it, or I don't care about that song. It's up to them to figure out who takes the solo. And usually it's the alto player Julian Presley, who's the older cat, has been around for a long time. He'll step up and take the solo if nobody, oh, well, quicker. You got to be quick to beat him to the punch, in other words. So there's a little bit of competition, but friendly competition um, there. So it's nice because it's most of the cats are on the younger side. I mean, Julian's 70. Everybody else is a fraction of that age. All like in the early 20s or mid 20s, and but they have plenty of bravado and chops and talent to be there to begin with. So it's uh, it's they're up for the challenge. In other words, so
Do you know a player by the name of Jakeem Joyner?
it sounds familiar, but he hasn't passed through my ensemble yet.
Okay. All right. Now, he's a fantastic alto sax player.
Okay,
He's won a
well that
couple of awards, and he's out of LA.
okay.
I don't know if you knew him or not, but he's worked with like Marcus Miller and
Oh yeah.
uh, I can't remember everybody. He was on the show just a couple of weeks ago. That's why he
Oh,
was
great.
kind of fresh in my head. So I didn't know if it was the stereotype that all jazz musicians knew each other or not. You know.
It is a small world. Yeah, yeah.
So how's
Maybe not.
COVID affecting you guys? I mean, live performance has got to be dead in the water, yeah?
It's dead in the water. It's gone. Yeah, I mean not gone, but it's dead. We lost some really good people. It's very sad, and but it seems like people are hanging in there. Um, Perhaps even taking the opportunity, as I did, to sort of work on some other areas. I've been, I've always been writing, poetry, songwriting, scripts, novels, and so it just allowed me to sort of refocus that way. And in some ways, it's been that's been a good thing that's come out of it.
I guess the writers have had more time, certainly, but I feel bad for the performers whose bread and butter is dependent on live performance. A lot of musicians in that group, and I know they're really hurting. I've had a couple on the show that have pretty much lost all their income.
Yeah, and even if they like augment their performance income from teaching, that's also been hurt. So yeah, it's been difficult.
It's been tough, yeah. So you've got a novel called The Perfect Fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one is that your one you're promoting now? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little about it.
Well, I mean, for a while, I had done my share of solo piano or gigs or small group gigs, both where I got my start was in San Francisco, and here in New York, and so there is something very solitary and very solemn almost about that, and insular, that solo piano gig. So the protagonist of this piece, Preston Gomez, he plays in a small group. He plays in a dive bar called Heaven, and it's apropos since he back in New York, he had his fingers broken by his wife who had hired the mob in a jealous rage after finding out he was having an affair with the singer in the band. And so it starts off, this is after that had happened. He's in San Francisco and having taught himself how to play piano again with a couple dead fingers. And
wow.
So, but then his wife turns up dead, and his girlfriend, the woman he was having the affair with, had been missing when he found out or she had left him. And so he assumes it's her, possibly responsible for his wife's death. And so he goes to New York, travels to New York City from San Francisco for a couple reasons, to find Mona, his girlfriend, and to find out who killed his wife. But as a result, he gets implicated as the lead suspect once he gets to New York.
Is this set in modern times, or is it sounds like something right out of the 40s?
Well, it's not specified as such. I mean, that's sort of the thing too that I noticed. Well, jazz is sort of timeless in the scene and what goes on. It's the same thing, it's cats meet up at jam sessions after their gigs. The jam sessions go till 2, 4 in the morning. Sometimes there's drugs, sometimes there's not, but it's competitive and there's a community, and in San Francisco, I used to play at these little dive bars, and they were right at it. You didn't know what year it was. It could be 1940, Club Deluxe, The Right Spot, Cafe du Nord. You just didn't know. You get lost in that milieu.
I don't know. While you were describing the story, I just had this picture of film noir and 1940s jazz clubs in New York City. That kind of smoky-filled room and. Something very reminiscent of Charlie Parker, even, like that movie.
Yeah. Well, before they outlawed smoking in the bars, it had all that ambience, and then some. But it still exists. My band was playing at Minton's. We had a residency there on the weekends, And Minton's Playhouse, of course, is where Dizzy Gillespie and
Right.
Thelonious Monk, Charlie Parker kind of invented bebop music. So it's so you're right, to have that blessed gig and to be thrown right into that same space, was you could feel the presence of those entities, And,
Are the clubs still, is that the jazz club scene is still, I don't want to use the word vibrant, but there's still a market for it? I mean, people still go, it's still hot.
not anymore, but obviously. But prior to this, yeah, it was packed every night, at least up at Minton's. We were packing it. And of course, we had a 10-piece band and 2, 3 singers and playing original music. That's the thing too, is, I come at it as a writer, again, as a composer, songwriter, and my whole theory too, and where that, intersects with bebop. Bebop, the tunes, so many of the tunes are based off the chord changes from standards. So my philosophy with this band was to write songs that are like standards, like from the American Songbook, for the singers to interpret, and then on top of those chord changes, write something more complex from the more of the bebop vernacular, and put those worlds together. And so and I think as of the last few years, more and more young musicians who are embracing that music. I mean, for a while you saw a lot of people doing like kind of that swing type stuff.
You're right.
They call it Gatsby era stuff, which is not exactly my cup of tea. We get hired to do swing gigs and piss the dancers off by sticking too many, going off too long, and just it was a mess. And but Minton's is just the perfect place for that. And so our music is more like I would say like almost like Frank and Ella meets Mingus. It has that chaotic energy of Charles Mingus, but also the great singers.
We do have to kind of wrap this up, but I just wanted to mention quickly that you've also got a screenplay called Poets Are the Destroyers.
Yes, that's right. And that's to see the light of day, I think springtime. It's a feature film about, I was curating a poetry reading series, and I also write poetry on the regular. So inspired by some of my own experiences, and also inspired by some of these other younger poets and their voices and their stories. And so this young woman, Nancy Pop, directed it. Very talented young woman, and so I think it's, from what I've seen, it looks pretty darn good. I'm pretty impressed by the direction and the cinematography and the acting. So I'm excited to see it.
Oh, so it's in production, yeah?
It's in post-production. It's just, I think
it's in post.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, super. Well, we look forward to that.
Yeah.
And I guess the last question is, do you have a website you want to give out so people come check you out?
Yeah, jchopkins.com.
Okay. Pretty simple.
It's got we also have the new album with the Biggish Band called New York Moment, which is, a lot of the songs resonate in regards to what we're going through, are being tested again.
Yeah, I think we're all being tested at this point. But,
yeah, for sure.
Hopefully we'll all come out of this better than we started, I hope.
I think so.
I hope so.
I feel it.
JC, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Sure.
Nice talking to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
And best of luck.